agreeing to interview, or at least have a discussion. The topic of human suffering, I mean, obviously is a huge topic in religion from the Islamic tradition. And we don't have a monolithic tradition. We have people that wrote books on theodicy or attempting to explain the ways of God to human beings. So, but there's a lot of different views on this. But if you just go back to the Quran makes it very clear in several verses that the world is a tribulation. One of our greatest scholars in the spiritual tradition, who's known as Imam al-Junayd al-Baghdadi, and he's an agreed upon Imam. He was an outward scholar, but he was also a master of the inward sciences. Ibn Taymiyyah praises him, so everybody accepts him. He said that he took as a foundational principle something that once he took it as his principle, nothing bothered him from the world. And he said that principle was that this place is an abode of tribulation, of difficulty, which could be stress or depression or concern or woe. He said, Daru hammin wa ghammin wa bala'in wa fitna, and strife and temptation and tribulation. Fitna is one of those words in the Quran that has a lot of different meanings. So he said that's the nature of the abode, and it is designed to come to me with everything that I dislike. And he said, so if it comes to me with what I like, then it's fadl, it's grace and it's bounty, and I should be grateful. But it's not the nature of the abode. Once you understand that, I mean, the Buddhists get this, the world is suffering. That's the first noble truth that Buddha taught. This is not different from the Islamic tradition. We understand that the world is a tribulation, and the tribulation can become suffering from surfeit, from having too much, or suffering from having too little. And both of them are tribulations. One of the verses in the Quran, we made some of you a tribulation for others. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah said, we made the rich a tribulation, that it means we made the rich a tribulation for the poor. We made the poor a tribulation for the rich. We made the educated a tribulation for the uneducated, and the uneducated a tribulation for the educated. We made the Muslim a tribulation for the non-Muslim, and the non-Muslim a tribulation for the Muslim. This is the world. And I think once you accept that, you can kind of relax. But I think everybody wants this to be paradise. And so when things fall apart, which they inevitably will, including our own bodies, then people suddenly lose faith. I don't know. It seems to me that they probably had faith in the wrong things in the first place. And that's why they're now, if you ask, why are some people suffering than others? This is called the mystery of iniquity in the Christian tradition. We can't determine why the circumstances of the world are as they are, but we do know that the sins of fathers are definitely visited upon their children. Things that people did 100 years ago are affecting us today. And so that's one of the reasons why we as a generation should be a generation that attempts as much as possible to break those kind of patterns that peoples of the past fall into. But you can't do that collectively. You do that individually. And if you have a critical mass of people, then it'll have a collective impact. But the trials and tribulation of the world will continue. I mean, in a lot of ways, this is one of the best times to be alive. I actually have a book here in my life. I wasn't planning on this, but this is worth reading. It's called Factfulness, 10 Reasons We're Wrong About the World and Why Things Are Better Than You Think. It's written by a physician from the UN who worked in some of the worst areas. And he just shows how, despite the fact that there are a lot of tribulations in many places and people are suffering and difficult, in a lot of places, the world's better than it's ever been. And one of the problems with human beings is that we are an ungrateful species. We whine and we complain constantly. And the Quran is very clear about whining and complaining. If you do it, God says he'll give you more to whine and complain about. But if you're grateful, he'll give you more things to be grateful for.
And so, hello, assalamu alaikum. We're just going to ask you to mute that if you don't mind. I'm going to continue with Shaykh Hamza real quick. Shaykh Hamza, I appreciate that perspective on it, but there are some who are listening who say, despite what you've said, I'm still a human being. I have anxiety. I have lost my job. I can't pay my rent. I'm stuck at home. My child or my father or my grandfather might be immunocompromised. And everything that you said, I agree. I should be grateful. I understand I should be humble. I understand that every generation has had a tribulation. 100 years ago, 1918, the influenza that
Much
is called
worse.
Spanish influenza, that but was actually emerged from the United States. That generation went through this. But tell me, you know, as you know, human to human, man to man, father to father, how can I endure this? Because I know how I'm supposed to be, but I am a human being with anxieties and fears. How should I endure this moment as a Muslim?
Look, I go back to the Quran. I actually believe in the Quran. I don't know. I think a lot of Muslims have lost a relationship with the Quran. For me, the Quran is very clear. خُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ هَلُوعًا. Human beings are created in anxiety. Like we enter into the world as children. When we first come out of the womb of the mother, we're in a complete state of anxiety. And then the Quran says, if harm afflicts them, they panic. And if good afflicts them, they withhold. إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ, except for people of prayer. And then it goes on to list the qualities that those people have. So there's another verse in the Quran that says, whenever a calamity afflicts, you know, that the people that recognize it, they say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And this is something, I think modern people have really lost this quality, because pre-modern peoples, I mean, I've spent a good part of my life in works that were written several hundred years ago, and the difference in faith and how people responded. Muslims have been through hell in the past. I mean, we have been through Holocaust, and yet people kept their faith. They now people seem to lose their faith very easily, and just one wonders, was that faith in the first place, or how strong was it? Because the Quran says there are people who worship God just on the edge. When things are going well, they're with God, and then when things go badly, they're not with God. All you have to do is study the seerah of the Prophet. Who had a more difficult life than the best of creation? I mean, he lost all of his family. He was persecuted. He watched his own people being tortured in front of him. Who had a more difficult life? I think people need to reconnect with the Quran and with the seerah. And yeah, we all, I mean, we're human, that's true. The Ibrahim, when the guest wouldn't eat his food, it says, "Awjasa fi nafsihi khifa." He felt fear, because in that tradition, you know, the desert people, if you don't eat their food, it means you intend harm for them. So he thought the angels maybe were going to harm him. So he had natural fear. Anxiety is natural. People need to do dhikr. The Prophet, إِذَا حَزَبُهُ أَمْرٌ الْتَجِئَ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ. If he ever became anxious about anything or troubled, he would go to prayer. أَسْتَعِينُ بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. Like, seek help and succor in prayer and in patience. These are real things, and they actually work if people actually try them. One of the things about modern people, I lived with Bedouin people. Bedouin people have nothing. There's no 911 to call if somebody has a heart attack or somebody's really sick. But I found that those people had such incredible faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I didn't see depression amongst them. I just saw people that were really in a state of submission to Allah. This religion is called Islam. I mean, it means that you're in a state of submission to Allah. Woman, you know, وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ يَهْدِ قَلْبَهُ. If you trust it, that's said right before tribulation. If you trust in God, God will guide your heart. In the commentaries, they say, guide your heart to accepting the tribulations that he sent. And then pain and suffering. I mean, I was in an area where 1 out of every 4 children died. And I saw little children that got sick and died. Again, we're very spoiled, especially here in the United States. Even poor people in the United States, the things that we have in this country are just overwhelming, and England too, which doesn't, I'm not belittling human suffering at all, but I'm also really arguing for people to put things into a perspective. For those of us who live with chronic pain is a really fascinating thing, like to be constantly in pain in your body. And for those of us who know that, you can either just, be miserable all the time, or say, what does this mean? One of the great scholars of Turkey said that sometimes out of God's love for his servants, he gives them chronic pain so that they kind of are looking forward to getting out of the world.